Each had it for.
It's crazy. Like I'm going on to 12 days.
She went to the doctor, she had bronchitis.
Okay, welcome everyone to today's third budget meeting on December 18th, 2024. We always begin our meetings with our land acknowledgement. The municipality of Tweed recognizes that our work takes place on traditional Indigenous territories, including the Huron, Wendat, Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee peoples. We recognize and respect the histories, languages, and cultures of all First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all Indigenous peoples whose presence continues to enrich our communities. Miigwech. Could I have a mover and a seconder for the approval of the budget for today? Agenda for today, not the budget. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Demarche, and thank you very much, Councillor Palmetier. Any questions on said agenda? Seeing none, be it resolved that the agenda for the December 18th, 2024 budget meeting be approved as presented. All in favor? Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, I just have a very few remarks that I would like to make before we begin today. This will be our third 2025 budget meeting. In our first meeting, we looked at capital requirements, and in our second, we focus on operational expenses. Today, we will be reviewing user fees, fine-tuning capital and operation expenditures, and reviewing potential overall 2025 tax implications. Please note that this budget will not be finalized until January or February 2025. Mayors across the province have voiced their anger and concern regarding the hefty OPP increases. For example, in 2024, our OPP costs were $1,046,000. In 2025, our OPP costs are $1,284,000, an increase of $237,000 or 23.7% increase from the previous year, or a representative tax increase of 4.4%. In response to this outrage, the provincial government has decided to step in with $77 million to help alleviate the pain associated with this increase. They have committed this money for 2025 only, which may have something to do with the potential spring election. I'm sure they do not want municipalities talking about the impact that these increases have had on municipal budgets and hence the residential taxpayer. In order to avoid a 4.4% levy in 2026, plus any additional increases due in that year, we are proposing to spread the increase over 2 years. Therefore, 2.2% of this year's preliminary tax increase is for OPP costs. These funds will be put into a reserve to help alleviate the pain in 2026. If the government wisely chooses to help subsidize costs in 2026 as well, then we will pull the money from that reserve and apply it for the 2026 general tax levy. This is something that will be under discussion today. I also want to thank you, CAO Gloria Raybould, for drafting a very sound budget and for all the efforts all your efforts in helping council and our residents understand the complexities of a municipal budget. We also bid you a fond farewell, wishing you much success as the new CAO of Renfrew. Gloria, you will be greatly missed. We are grateful for your guidance and support through some very difficult budget years and through the challenges associated with COVID-19. We will miss your creative genius as we make our way through yet more difficult budget years. Your incredible knowledge about the affairs and decisions made by council and federal and provincial governments kept us on track. We will miss your knack for explaining very difficult concepts, rules, directives in a very down-to-earth fashion. We bid you a fond farewell. I would also like to thank our interim CAO, Kelly Pender, for joining our team and guiding us through this transition as we search for a new CAO. Kelly has just recently retired as the CAO of Frontenac and has a stellar reputation. We welcome you aboard, Kelly. I also want to thank my colleagues around this table for having stepped in during my absence. Chuck and I were away on a Southeast Asia tour, and then when I returned, I was deathly ill. And I want to thank Deputy Mayor for his guidance and direction in running our council meetings. She did a fabulous job. I participated in the one via Zoom and was very impressed. So thank you very much. I also want to thank all of you for stepping in during a very difficult situation due to the resignation of our CAO. You all performed admirably, and I'm grateful that we have the team that we have to deal with this. Thank you all. And thank you all for attending all the wonderful festivities that happened on our Christmas weekend, so to speak. I saw it all on Facebook, and it was so good to see all of you participating in so many different wonderful ways. So thank you. I also wanted to finish with a Christmas message because I didn't get a chance to say one. And so this is the Municipality of Tweed Council and staff wish our residents the merriest of Christmases and the happiest of holidays. We extend a heartfelt holiday greeting to our neighbors across Hastings County, including our friends in Belleville, Quinte West, and Prince Edward County. We hope that the season brings you all great joy, and if at all possible, to extend that joy to those who may be less fortunate. There is no greater feeling than knowing that you have made someone's Christmas a little jollier, a little brighter. In fact, that is what the season is all about. Giving and helping whenever and wherever you can. This holiday season, be happy, safe, caring, and kind. And Merry Christmas from your council and staff. Thank you. Moving on to the adoption of the minutes. Could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the November 12, 2024 budget meeting minutes, please? Thank you, Councillor Palmetier. Thank you, Councillor Valley-Cat. Any questions on said minutes? Seeing none, be it resolved that the minutes of November 12th, 2024 budget meeting be approved as presented. All in favor? Thank you. Now, Gloria, I'm turning it over to you to guide us through the, we'll walk us through what we're going to be dealing with today, but to start off with a typical presentation, which sets everything in motion.
Yeah, so thank you everyone who is watching, and for those who might be new to the budgeting process. We always like to start our budget meetings off with a quick video that the Municipal Finance Officers of Association of Ontario, the MFOA, has prepared a few years ago as part of a grant program, just to help better explain how municipal budgeting works and how it might be a little different than budgeting in a commercial business. And so we're just going to play that video now for you. Apologize for the delay. My computer's just not wanting to show the sound. Just a second.
That's okay. While Gloria is doing that, I guess this will be our last get together before Christmas. So wish you all a very Merry Christmas as well.
Same you.
Yeah. And I suppose everybody's got all kinds of plans booked and everything. And hopefully the weather is going to be cooperative. I think we're only looking at cold, not much snow.
I emailed my Christmas list to everybody. Did everybody get it?
Yeah, we did. And it went right into the shred bin. It's going to make snow for you. Here we go.
Okay, I would like to help you understand how your municipality develops its budget. We always hear about them, and often this can feel like another language altogether. Before we get started, there's important information you should know. Ontario municipalities, like the municipality of MFOA, receive approximately 9% of all taxes collected, but are responsible for over 50% of the infrastructure. Let's start by looking at what the word budget means. Well, simply put, it's a planned, itemized summary of money that is coming into the municipality and how that money is spent for a specific period of time. It's very important to note that provincial government legislation in Ontario states money coming in equals money going out, also known as revenue equals expenditures or a balanced budget. The municipality of MFOA provides more than 60 services to the citizens of the municipality, so municipal council and administration always have to make difficult decisions to ensure this balancing takes place. There are two main components of the budget when looking at the money going out side of the scale. Operating pays for all the day-to-day activities of the corporation. This includes items such as salaries and wages, utilities, supplies, fuel, and insurance, just to name a few. The capital budget pays for all the new big investments or the rehabilitation of current assets under the municipality's control. So let's focus on how the municipality collects to pay for all these services. For every dollar that comes into the municipality, 64 cents comes from property taxes, 21 cents from grants and subsidies, and 15 cents from user fees and other sources. So, now we've learned what a budget is, how municipalities collect money, and how they spend it. Now let's take a look at how these pieces work together. Money comes in through property taxes, grants and subsidies, and user fees. The money collected is required for both the operating and capital budget. We've already talked about the operating budget, including day-to-day expenses, but it also includes money for funding capital budgets. The capital budget pays for all the new big investments or the rehabilitation of current assets under the municipality's control. This connection is made through three methods. The capital levy method reflects a pay-as-you-go approach. The reserve fund method, which reflects a planned save now, acquire, or use later approach, and the debt payment approach. Okay, so let's recap. 1. A budget is a plan for money coming in and money going out. There are two building blocks to the municipality's budget: operating and capital. 2. The operating budget is like you're paying your house bills to keep the lights on. Just like in a normal household, our bills go up with inflation. 3. The capital budget is like your major outlays: vehicles, house, renovations, etc. 4. Money comes in from three sources: property tax levy, user fees, and grants and subsidies. 5. Money coming in is used to deliver over 60 services to municipality residents. 6. Municipal council and administration, with the input of the public, decide how to best balance the municipal budget guided by provincial legislation. And that is how your municipality develops its budget.
Thank you, Gloria. Okay, I guess we'll move on to the next phase, section 7, where we're looking at community requests. I'll turn it over to you. Let's move this over here.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we're going to be starting with looking at the community requests. So in the binders that council has, that'd be page 1.8.1. Some of these we've already discussed and had agreed to put in, so we'll just summarize those ones, and the other ones where there was ask for more information or additional information has come forward, I will review those. So the first one was the Actinolite Hall Committee had been asking for their parking lot lines to be painted, which was discussed that could be done as part of the roads department's line painting budget next year. They wanted to replace the floors and the air conditioner, which totaled about $16,000. Council had decided to double their annual levy for 2025 to 6,000 and not give them any in 2026 to add to their current reserve balance of about $7,000. And then they would just need to come up with the remaining $2,000 or choose which one they want to wait for the next year's on. Assuming there's no change there, we'll just move on to the next one. So the Hungerford Hall office that we rent out had a request in for an entrance ramp when the last meeting that was discussed about looking into getting cost prices for a pre-engineered concrete one. However, the companies that we reached out to and that were provided as names to us will not provide us a quote without providing engineered drawings. So we've done some research and I asked the deputy clerk to investigate some other options, and we can purchase one of those temporary folding metal ones that do meet all accessibility code requirements and do not fall under the building code, so don't need a building permit. For about $1,000. So I'm recommending that we purchase one of those. It's similar to anybody who might have been at the library who has ever used one of their ramps. You just pull it out, unfold it, set it over the stairs, and a wheelchair or anyone else with mobility issues could be able to proceed up the ramp. And then when they're done, they just fold it back up and tuck it away in a closet in their front door. That will be more economical than paying for engineered drawings and then still not knowing what the price quote would be even for prefab concrete ramp.
I think we go with that. Thank you. Good, let's make that happen.
Okay. So the next one, we had talked about the Queensborough Hall Committee had submitted some requests for some work and look at the bell tower and possibly some attic repairs and roofing items. At the previous meetings, we discussed, and it was directed for some temporary measures of boarding it up or plastic for any major work to be done in a future budget year. And allow them a chance to be able to maybe raise some donations to be able to help fund any replacements that might need to happen there. So it's still showing as a zero impact on on the taxes.
Might I just ask, they have their allotment of 3,000 as well, or is it okay?
Yes, so they still got, or
So
still get their
So
3,000.
they could put that 3,000 to that.
They could, yes.
And then if we also borrowed 3,000 from 2026. Like we
Yep,
could do
so
the same
we
thing
could
that
do similar to Actinolite where we give them 6,000 this year and they use that to do any of that work that they require in the attic and the bell tower. And then they would get no additional allotment for 2026. That is something, we could do it similar to Actinolite.
Now, follow-up question, they would not do the work though, I would assume we would do the work. based
Yeah,
on the
so
cost of it.
depending on what type of work it is, it'll most likely be a contractor as we don't have any actual
But we would oversee
lift.
it.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we might ask them to arrange for getting quotes for us and then we would authorize it getting done and being to our standards, but that's usually the help that we get on those capital projects from the committee is we ask them to find the companies to get the quotes for us and then we assess which ones get awarded.
So if that would be the case, I know the one thing that they're concerned about, and I guess we would be concerned about after putting over 400,000 into that building. We don't want further deterioration about something that could be done. So council, would we, yes, go ahead.
How much, do they have money left over or sitting there currently?
They have, I believe it's around 2,000 from 2024 that has not been spent. And I do know they had some plans that they wanted to use it for some kitchen stuff, a dishwasher or some cupboards or something like that in 2025. But yes, they do have about 2,000, I believe, in unspent from 2024's budget.
So, just, well, do we have any quotes on what this work would even cost?
No, yeah.
No,
No.
No, I'm just saying, we could propose this if we're comfortable with it. And then we would work with them on what could be done for that 6,000, happy to put off anything else. Or we just leave it the way we have it. I'm just throwing that out there because we're making that arrangement for tonight. Are we okay to do that? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Flynn.
Your worship, I think it's important that we maintain the integrity of the building over anything else. And I was just wondering if there are local contractors that we could, I mean, I don't, if we put a tender out, we could go from maybe $5,000 to 60,000, who knows? And would we have the opportunity to have some local businesses, local contractors, and maybe go through the tender process with those people first? I don't know.
yeah.
Good.
So under our procurement policy, we would actually follow the quote process as opposed to the tender process. So it would be requests for quotes, which are typically invitational. So we would choose who we wish to obtain a quote from. And we do tend to stay local because typically they will be cheaper for this type of work as there's not as much delivery work or like cost in that end of things. If we were expecting it to cost more than 15,000, then yes, we would have to do a tender, but under 15,000, we can do a request for quote, which can be invitational.
Yes, Councillor Valicat.
So not knowing what the scope of work would be, obviously you could, and I don't know exactly what they're asking for, whether they want it rebuilt or refurbished or some sort of patchwork. If we were going to go to a quote, would we be able to ask for the variations in what would be a most cost effective, last, the longest amount of time kind of thing, and be the least expensive for us at this particular point in time? I agree 100%. We need to protect our investment, but there's a balance.
Well, I agree, like they've identified a series of things, like the bell tower and a couple of other things in the roof that they would like done. Okay, so I think what we do is we identify what each of the projects are. Okay, that they're looking at. And when we go to tender, we get quotes on each individual, so we can determine what can be done now. And also identify what is the most critical that needs to be done if there's not sufficient funds. And then to look at solutions for each of the things that need to be done. And
Yes.
that's the way I would like to see us do it. So if we're okay, are we okay with doing similar? Okay, so that's what we'll do then, Gloria, where we'll borrow. Now, I want to make sure that each of these Hamlet halls know that because they're borrowing, there will be no money there in 2026. I don't want people coming to us and saying that they need that money in 2026 because it's a done deal. Or they can leave it and 3,000 this year, 3,000 next year. We look and see what has to be done and can be done.
Okay.
Okey-doke.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next thing, Gloria.
So the next one, after the last budget meeting, we've already put into the budget, and that is the repair to the culvert at the Stokel Lake Ball Diamond to address the drainage issues and the rotted culvert. So that is in the budget at 12,000. And at the last meeting, it was decided that although the Marble Arts Center and the Tweeting Company Theater do a lot for the community and they provide some great entertainment options and everything, that just because of our budget situation at the last meeting, council decided that we would not be actually contributing to any of the local community groups this year and unless our budget had improved. So assuming we're not changing that, then this will be zero.
Yes, Councillor Valiquette.
So I know there's a budget issue here, but not just the Marble Arts Center or whatever. There's many organizations within the municipality that contribute significantly, and we've all talked about volunteers and whatnot, and just how vibrant it is in this community. Would it be possible to take a less significant amount of money, like I'm just going to throw a number out, say a couple $1,000s, and to be able to contribute a little bit to everybody just as a token for us, our community's continued support for them? Is that unreasonable? I realize it's not $2,500 for the Marble Arts Center. It might only be $200, but
Yes.
I think we owe them so much. And if we can continue that, even during times when we're in a bit of a crunch, I think that goes a long way.
Well, I do. It is interesting. Well, first of all, you look at the people that came into our community with the Santa Claus parade. That was huge. I mean, there were so many people. People have been going to the art center to watch a show, and they don't recognize half the people in the audience, which is great. Okay, that means people are coming into our community. So if we wanted to take a token amount, like you said, $2,000, and then divvy it up a little bit to everybody who's trying their best to survive as one thing, and also helping us grow economically, or even just improving our capacity and our who we are within Hastings County, and I'm no problem with that. Open it up to everybody else. Jim, Councilor.
Your worship, we would have to be very careful and make sure that we included everybody. I hate thanking people for doing things because you always miss the person that's done the most work. And I try to thank them as a group, but
We have some requests in here. Gloria, do we have others in here as well?
This was the only one that was received this year.
We did have others last year.
Yeah,
Yes.
we had there was the Stampede, and was
Yeah, the Stampede is more of an advertising one. They're asking us to advertise, which is included in a different type of budget.
Okay.
Which I'd have to pull the community development one to remember if it was included in or not. There were ones, I believe, for the fair. Last year there was,
What we could do is, why don't
Lions
we move this
possibly,
to
or-
our advertising budget? Because just to get our name in the brochure and stuff, it's an advertising thing, and $200, like you're saying, make it do it that way. It's not a charitable donation. It is there's a requirement, you're advertising us, and treat it that way. And then maybe,
We could increase the advertising budget in administration by whatever dollar amount. I believe I've heard 2,000, if that's.
I just do that every day.
well, I think what I would like to do is I'd like to see what is in the advertising budget, what we are spending the advertising budget on, and see if there's room in that budget to use some money to do these things. And then if not, look at adding additional funds if need be. How does that sound to people? Looking at what's there,
Yeah.
seeing if there's room, and then if not, adding a little bit. And you don't have to, I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to determine that today, but maybe at the next budget meeting.
Yeah, so typically we do budget 7,000. Mostly that covers the newspaper ads for the bi-weekly news columns that we do, as well as it does include the amount to the Legion's memorial book that they do once a year, like those. So there's 2 or 3 small ones that we always do. The Mother's Day ads, the Remembrance Day ads, the Father's Day ads, there's a couple of standard key holidays that we always put a general ad in that's just, thanking people for either their service or wishing them Happy Mother's Day, Happy Father's Day, Happy Canada Day. So that typically is what it covers right now, is mostly just that, but we could look at increasing that to then do advertising to some of these other organizations.
Are there funds available in that grant that we just received to promote the municipality in different venues?
So there is a grant that we did just receive in community development that does have a lot of marketing aspect to it. I believe that had to already be described what type of marketing in the actual grant application. And so they will only pay for that the advertisements that we applied for.
I'm just trying to figure, what was the nature of that grant? Was that the diversity one?
That was the one, yeah, there was inclusivity and I believe the senior aspect to it. So the age-friendly concept.
We should be able to promote, then if it's diversity, we should be able to promote Tweed and Co in that, out of that fund, I would think.
Yeah, I would have to double check
Okay.
the
Okay,
contract.
what we
on
do
that
is
one,
let's
but
just take a look and see what's currently available. We want to do something, but we're not going to put any money towards it until we know what's available and what we could draw on. Are we okay with that? From existing funds? We okay? Okay, let's move on. Yes, go ahead.
Your worship, another thing, and people have fundraisers and somehow we don't get the message out. I don't think often enough, clear enough, maybe. And I feel so bad when I see after the fact that I missed another opportunity to help. And the volunteers, they come out in droves to support all these things. So I don't know if there's a way that we could maybe push the groups to, get more advertising, get like every month, there's what we have. Every week, maybe, a week might be kind of onerous, but every month we have this going on, we have this going on.
I think the Community Development Committee relies on community groups to provide them with
Yeah.
information, and they go out and they promote it as
Yeah.
well as they let us know about it. But there is the onus on those groups as well to keep
To get
us
the info in,
advised.
yeah, that's
Thank
right,
you.
okay.
Thank you. Any other comments before we move on? Seeing none, over to you, Gloria.
Sorry, just making a change for that one hamlet. Okay. So then the last 3 community requests, which we did not get in front of council at the previous meeting, is on page 1.8.12. A company called Momentum BPO Inc. has reached out to us about Civic Track software, which is designed specifically for council members to track different requests that are coming to council or different types of community concerns that are coming in. I believe they had spoke with a member of council, I can't remember which one, about it, and it was passed on to me to add into the budget. It would be about $3,000 a year plus the HST that we don't get back. I'm not sure if this is something that council is interested in, of whether they would like a software like that where they're tracking some of the community requests and concerns, and the members of the community, or whether this is something you'd be interested in maybe in 2026.
Yes, please go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Could we not just get a report like once a month from admin on those instead of paying for extra software?
Mhm.
Like just saying, we got these issues came in, status, da, 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 da.
Yep, that is something that could just be done from an internal report. Yes.
Maybe we should forego it at this time. Comments, other comments?
I think there's better places to put our money. than
Okay,
software like
okay,
this.
take that one out. Okay, thank you. Next one, Tweed Agriculture Society.
So the Tweed Agricultural Society has asked for us to fund 50% of the costs of the respruing and painting of the two barns at the fairgrounds. And based on the estimates that they provided and the HST that we won't get back, that would be just shy of $2,800.
Well, I think we should go to the table and
Just so.
we'll go ahead.
Just to make everyone clear, Steel started the lift, they went ahead and did this.
Yes, that's right.
So just so everyone's on the same
What was
page.
that?
The
Steel
steel started
the
lifting.
lift,
Oh, I see. Okay.
so they went ahead and at that point re-screwed and painted. So
Yeah.
now
And
it's
they-
more of a.
And they did reach out to me to let me know they were doing that. Yes, go ahead. Thank you, Councillor.
I don't know, I don't know if anybody, I think Councillor Valcat might be the only one who was here. We had a similar request come from when they wanted to paint the barns, and I think what we had done there was said, we'll commit to 50% when we'll oversee the process. So they'd submit their 50% to us and we'll oversee the process.
Yeah, well, right
No,
now it's
they've
been
done-
done,
it's done.
so they have
It's done.
already,
So we're saying,
so if we're committing to any, we would get the actual, we would require the actual invoices to be
Mm.
able to pay 50% to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
so I'm good with that. So, yes, Councillor Valicat.
50% or up to a maximum of 27.98.
Yes, we
Because we
could
don't
word
know
it
how
that
much
way.
they've spent, right?
We could word it that way.
And so as well, your worship, so council's aware, if they have in discussions with the fairgrounds committee, they've gone ahead and they're gonna do a little bit of other remedial work at their own cost and time
Okay, thank you.
around that canteen building.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, good.
Alright.
Back stairway. This one is a major concern for me. It has to be done. I don't know what we're gonna do here. Because again, it's the engineered drawings that are being requested also by Quinte Conservation.
So there's actually two items here. The one I think you're referencing for the engineer drawings is the ramp in the front
That's right.
entrance, which we had 15,000 in 2024, which was to come from reserves. It didn't get done in 2024, so this doesn't have a tax impact. It's just rolling forward, and we're pulling from the reserve, the building reserve, in 2025 for the 15,000. The $3,500 one is the back stairwell, the metal one, needs some repair, as there's some concerns that in a fire emergency, if somebody's going out that one, that it's not actually a safe set of stairs right now. And so they're looking for those to also be repaired.
Originally, Quinte Conservation said, no, we couldn't replace that. But after we had our meeting with Brad, when we sat down and we talked about these things, he said, yes, we could go ahead and replace that. And the other thing is in regards to the ramp is not going to be replacing the existing ramp, which is that long ramp at the side. Anyone who has ability issues, that's very hard for them to get up. So the ramp is going to come out to the front, and it's going to be that kind of levered staged. So like there's a landing and you can take a break and then you go up the next phase. And that way it's going to be, and we've already got somebody who's prepared to build it, Quantium's, just for cost and stuff. So I would like to see us get that done because the ramp is falling apart.
Mhm.
So we'll go ahead, Councillor Valicat, and then over to.
I just wanted to say very quickly that the pavilion is a gem in our community. It's a gem in our province, right? It's probably something that's unique Canada-wide. And again, looking forward, I mean, we need to invest in things like that so they're there for other people to enjoy.
Yes.
I have no opposition.
Just a quick question here. The 15,000, Gloria, you said was coming pulled out of reserves. I'm just wondering why it has a budget impact if you're pulling from reserves.
It doesn't. That was me forgetting to put that at zero and
Okay.
pulling a formula down. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Thank you and good catch. Yes,
Your worship, would there be any accessibility grants available for this kind of thing?
Yeah, we'll look at everything that we possibly
Yeah,
can.
the federal government does issue out the accessibility grants every now and then. Sometimes they put in requirements that you can't apply if you've applied and been successful within the last couple of years. But we always look to those before we actually proceed with any accessibility project. Because if we can save the tax dollars, then we do.
You
But
know, this
we
is
don't know
also,
if they're gonna be out.
this is also an opportunity for the Parrot Foundation.
Yes.
Okay, because this is an historical property and it is something that they probably would do to increase accessibility to the building for those with issues. Okay,
Did
So-
you want me to put it in the budget then with other financing and not be taxed and hope that we get success for a
I
grant from the
think we
parent
should
or?
leave it in as something we will fund and then we're going
And-
for funding and then it frees up that money for us.
Okay.
Are we okay with that? Okay. Thank you. Next.
So that was the last of the community requests. So we're going to move over to reports in the eScribe software.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I didn't bring my iPad. I didn't think I needed it.
So there was a report drafted about a potential additional public works operator. Did everybody get a chance to at least review that report, even if you don't have it in front of you? If not, I can read it, but
Go ahead, just jog our memory.
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead.
so the background was that there's been an express concern from Public Works that they're understaffed with no occasional workers, and no summer students available. In an effort to address this concern and provide additional support if the staff are ever sick and need time off or they're on vacation, or to allow the foreman to perform more foreman duties and less operator duties when weather events are occurring. We are recommending hiring a 10th Public Works operator in April. The reason I'm suggesting April is a lot of the really good operators already probably have full-time positions or are in seasonal contracts. We currently have 12 staff for Public Works, the manager, the supervisor, the foreman, and 9 operators. These individuals manage over 820 lane kilometers of road, which is approximately 91 kilometers per operator. And each year, they also manage 57 bridges or culvert structures, which is approximately 6 structures per operator. This is a lot compared to most other communities. And when one is down because they're ill or they're on vacation, it spreads the operations thinner than what they already are. So the request has been for one additional Public Works operator to start advertising in January or February for a start date in April. There's been a couple of options here for how to fund that. So the approximate cost with all the benefit pieces for a April to December would be approximately 53 to 55,000. Subject to any on-call costs, overtime costs, clothing and boot reimbursement maximums, or if they're less than the maximums. It could be funded from a tax levy, which would be approximately a 1%, or it could be funded from a reduction in the gravel roads program by 55,000 for a one-time year reduction from 245,000 to 190. This would allow the department to be able to address their concerns of being understaffed or especially when somebody is not well. And well, if you go with the reduced in the gravel roads program, they have mentioned that they had difficulty getting to a lot of their tasks this year with just the 9 operators. And so we're adding back in the gravel road program this next year. So if we reduce it a little bit and add another operator, it theoretically should be a feasible amount of workload that they'll be able to manage and be able to make an assessment after that.
Is it, barring discussion on the need for it right now, just looking at the payment options, is it possible to say that in 2025, half of the fee comes out of the gravel roads, half is tax? And then in 2026, then that means it was fully taxed, something to
Yep.
that effect.
That is
Okay.
something that we could do a $27,500 from tax and the rest of it out of the gravel roads program. That is something that we definitely could do.
Gradually phasing in the total
Yep.
cost of it for the next year. Okay, open to discussion with people. Yeah, go ahead.
Just a couple, maybe these are kind of dumb questions, but if our focus is on winter operations, why are we taking on the help in April and not during the winter season contracted?
So explain that already.
So
I still don't get it though.
the concern was not just the winter operations. The winter operations is definitely an issue. But in the summer, it still is, as well, as we have been having difficulty trying to attract summer employees. We typically call them summer students, but they're not necessarily always students. And summer's a time where we need those summer occasional type workers to help us with flagging. It takes 2 flaggers minimum for most projects, more if it's near an intersection. And we don't have anyone who can just be flaggers, which is typically what our summer occasionals would be doing. And the last year we didn't get any resumes, and the year before that, I think we only had 2 resumes. So it's getting harder and harder to compete for those summer ones. So this would help alleviate that by bringing on another individual. So more than one project could keep going on while still pulling operators to be flaggers for a day, as well as the winter operations. And anytime anybody is sick, there's no one to replace the individuals.
I think what Deputy Mayor DeMarsh was getting at, though, like, I think you had answered it, and he says he's trying to get his head around
Oh.
it, is that if we need winter help, why are we not hiring somebody now?
Sorry, I misunderstood. Yes. So we could advertise
Yeah.
in January to try to bring someone on in February. Typically, the individuals who would meet the qualifications of what we're looking for, that would be licensed operators for the equipment and vehicles that we have, will typically be, if they're looking for a full-time right now, they're typically in a seasonal contract. And if they're in a contract, they will have to complete that contract, and most of those run until the end of March. That's typically the timing that the province runs for their contracts. Most of the other municipalities hire on winter contract employees, but they typically all those contracts end in March, and most of those contracts don't have an early out.
Is there any way, though, that you could go ahead and advertise, and if you didn't get anybody of caliber that you were interested in, you just don't fill a position at that time, you wait till later and restaff? I mean,
Yeah, so
refile.
it could be an open advertisement that just starts in January, and if we find someone who could start earlier that meets all the qualifications and that is satisfactory, you could have them start right away and then pull down the advertisement. Or you could keep going. The original thought was just the likelihood of getting somebody who would be now looking to switch into full-time. It's harder in the winter because they're already committed into something.
Yeah, I was just following up on that because of Deputy Mayor DeMarsh's comment.
So sorry, just to follow through, just one suggestion for, if we are looking for like seasonal temp employees and that nature, I would say almost reach out to somebody like Manpower and those temp agencies, they have drivers that are looking for work all the time. And the other thing I'm having trouble wrapping my head around is the need for more help in the summer. I think we were just informed that we are going to be using contractors to haul our gravel because of the wear and tear in our trucks. So where is that manpower going? That we're freeing up for, because our trucks aren't running up and down the road. Am I right? No?
One moment, go ahead, go ahead.
So with that, this was a suggestion that was put forward. It was briefly spoken with the Public Works manager. He thought that could be a way of helping to kind of fund it, and reducing some of the time spent in determining which specific gravel roads need to be done this year. When some are done, we do have to still go out and kind of finish up the edges, usually some of the extra ditching if something freshly laid gravel and somebody drives over it, it does spread a little farther sometimes. And so they have to come in sometimes and tidy up afterwards. So that would be less of that type of work. It's still, a lot of it would be the contractor actually applying it to the roads. If that's something though that you feel is not an appropriate, like, it was just a suggestion that was brought forward and I've put it through for a
Sure.
proposal.
Councillor Fleeler and then Councillor Van.
Your worship. I can't support this at all. We have created a position. Therefore taking a man away from the day-to-day operations. I can't understand why we would need 3 supervisory positions to supervise. So now we've got 9 men that we're supervising with 3 staff. I think we need to really look at this thing. We never had an issue before. We had enough, we might have had the guys might have been taxed a bit in their work. But I can't support this. All of a sudden we create a position, now we need another person. It's the overall impact of this is what, $70,000-$80,000 to the taxpayer? 55,000 plus the position of the newly created foreman. I say it's closer to $80,000. I can't support it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor,
Well, just a casual observation, and I don't build roads or run a department here, but the one thing I have seen differently since there's been a bit of a change there is health and safety seems to have become more of a priority. And I've noticed flagging is something that is much more rigorously followed. Like if they're out doing work on the road, they've actually got it maintained properly, which I believe would be like the book 7 thing that they follow provincially. And I think that's significantly different, but that also consumes people to do that, right? So there's definitely a balance there. And I like that. That's a positive direction for the rest of the workers. So.
I also want to reflect back on what you said, like we used to have some success with hiring students to be some of those flag bearers, if you will. And we've had nobody applying for our applications anymore, so.
Your worship, can I speak to that?
Please do.
That piece directly. I had 2 parents approach me disappointed that it was put out so late. The students, they were hoping for their kids to get it to apply, and they looked and there was nothing there. So their kids ended up taking a job somewhere else. I just think it was missed and oversight that we used to get either into the high school or reach out a lot sooner. Looking into January, February, because that's when kids are starting to plan to have something.
I had sent out, Shelby had sent out about the federal student employment program. And I sent that out to everybody. Did we put in any requests for assistance, first of all?
Yes, I believe the grant application went in yesterday.
Yes,
It's due this week.
It was due this week, exactly.
I believe it's due on Friday this week, but yes, we were submitting for that. We always submit for 1 Parks, 1 Public Works, and the jailhouse student.
Okay.
And last year we were only successful in getting awarded for 1 of those
Okay,
positions.
so if I may firstly, then I want us to follow up with Shelby saying that we've got 3 in there. Okay, and it's important that we get this assistance. Back to you.
Just with that program as well, we have used it with the farm. An issue with that program and something that maybe we need to champion. They don't let anyone know if they're successful until very late,
Oh, yeah,
almost end of April.
yeah.
And that does not lead to success in trying to acquire students that are maybe college students. Maybe it's somebody that's in college between years and they're thinking of becoming an operator and looking at that. Those are the ideal candidates to fill those positions. And so maybe we need to reach out as well and just say that we'd like to see the program move along faster to get answers back to not only us, but other businesses in our community.
Well, especially when you're looking at university or college grads or in that they need to know before April that they've got a job lined up because school's finishing in April. Like, you know, so let's reach out, okay, and let's talk about what Councillor Palmatier said, that it's important that they are more timely in the announcement of, who's successful in this regard. I also want to know, one of the reasons why we've been turned down in the past as well, what's our wage on this?
So the federal government will only pay the minimum. So although we pay more than the minimum, we have to pay whatever that excess is. They will
Sure.
only pay the minimum amounts.
So when we offer that to a student, like, is it $20 an hour? Is it
It's $18 an hour for our summer student program.
See, that's another thing that's gonna turn people away from applying to ours, I'll tell you right now. We are underfunding, if we're trying to get, students in that in, honestly. I mean, they're gonna look at other opportunities where they can. Okay, so that could be another reason why it's just.
Mhm.
It's in, so you're saying we offer it at $18? What's the minimum wage right now in the province?
It just recently went to $17.55 or 17 something.
A retail job and not have any stress,
Yeah,
you know?
see, that's the thing, okay.
Same money.
Okay. So we may want to rethink, what we're offering when we do post that, but I guess, do we post once we hear that we've been successful?
I think that might be what happened last year. I think typically in the past, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Gloria, but we have just assumed that it was coming and looked for those students. And I think maybe it was month number 1 for a public works manager, and
Mhm.
it was kind of in that transition. I think he was waiting to see if we had the funding, so it kind of delayed for those students.
We do a joint advertisement for all of them typically. And I want to say typically we advertise in March. The clerk might remember better. I think it's always typically we are advertising in March, and we do one advertisement for all of the positions, but for parks, public works, and for jailhouse. Because sometimes we'll get a student who actually can jump back and forth between parks and public works, which is beneficial when we have years where things might be really busy for 2 or 3 weeks here, but then can move over to something
So
else.
if we
but-
advertise in March and say we don't get the federal funding, do we just not fill the position and do we pull it?
No, we usually proceed just.
And
without
we
the
would
funding.
hire and pay the full amount?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Through the mayor to Councillor Palmer here. I'd be interested in knowing where kids these days are actually looking for a job, so we can target those ads more appropriately. Like, I mean, are they looking in one specific website as opposed to another? It'd be just interesting to know where they're looking, that's all.
Okay, so we've had a roundabout discussion here. We talked about a position for Public Works, and now we talked about maybe better linking and with.
I'll
student
tell you where
employment.
my position is on the public works position. At this time, I'm not in favor of the individual. I do believe if we go ahead and hire, now is the time. In January, a lot of operators on construction crews are laid off. And if they might be looking for something that's more year round and consistent, not the hours that people in construction work through the summer.
So you would say that if we did proceed, that we would advertise now rather
Or
than.
in January
January.
or February or
Yeah.
something like that.
Okay, well, first of all, okay, let's deal with the one issue right now. The addition of a new staff member for Public Works starting in advertising in January. I would like to throw out what I talked about originally, half of that coming from gravel and half coming from taxation, and then the next year it's fully coming from as part of the tax base. Just so could I have a mover and a seconder to, well, go ahead. Sorry.
Your worship, before we do that, I think we really should look at what we have. I can't support that for a minute.
That's okay.
And-
You
and-
indicated that. I
And
appreciate that.
it might be further that I won't support the budget because of this.
That will be your call. Thank you.
It will, and,
Okay.
and I can't, we're robbing from Peter to pay Paul. I don't think there's a necessity, or I don't think it's necessary to hire another staff member this time. I think we've created the problem by the promotion of the foreman position. And I don't know why all of a sudden we're having this problem. We didn't have this problem before. And all of a sudden we've got this thing. It's gonna cost the taxpayers $80,000 overall. When you figure out the foreman's wages, the extra man's wages. I think we need to look at this thing before we jump. I think we make decisions too quickly. I don't know why we need this position, to tell you the honest truth.
Thank you. Okay, over to you, Councillor Valiquette.
So if we were gonna move this ahead today, I would suggest that it's fully funded this year by gravel and then phased in after that. So there's no implication this year for tax. And then the year after 50% and then the year after fully. As opposed to, you were talking 50%.
50% now, 50% taxation.
I'll second that to put it on the floor so we can
Okay,
have a proper
okay,
discussion.
Okay.
So
Just to clarify, the reason right now that I was not in support is I'd just really like to see a summer with our new gravel program with it being delivered, as well as our success with a summer student, maybe being more aggressive and just seeing how that helps with labor. We are doing more. So I don't want that to get lost in this discussion. We are doing more, especially with the maintenance of our bridges and culverts.
And our equipment. We have a whole new maintenance process in place where there's a lot of time spent in the shop, making sure the equipment's running and cleaned up after, like, it's been out on the roads with snow, salt and whatnot. So you're right, we're spending a lot more and a lot more on safety. That's another thing. So you're right, go ahead. If you have anything else to add, yes, I don't want to hear again about that you can't support it. I understand why you can't.
Well, your worship, another thing too is
Okay.
that the hours of work, it's been suggested that we change the hours of work. We don't want to push overtime hours. We've also mentioned that there's an opportunity to buy this steam Jenny to wash the trucks. And we need to discuss these things. You know what? We need to wash the trucks. Sure we do. But do we need to spend $22,000 to wash the trucks? How are we gonna wash 3 trucks in that garage all at the same time? And if we cut the overtime hours, when the guys are done, they're done. They go home. I think we need to have a lengthy discussion on the actual needs before we jump. I honestly do.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Valiquette.
can I just go back to something Councillor Palmetier said, and I think it's actually a really good idea. Why don't we kind of step back from hiring the extra person right now? Our CAO has indicated that when we hire without support provincially or federally for a summer student, we incur those costs totally.
Mhm.
Why don't we look at enhancing the wage to attract people or persons and run with that this summer to see what kind of difference it actually makes. If we get to the fall and Ryan can articulate the need to proceed with an extra person, then we could address it at that time.
And then we could actually hold put a listing in early fall, which means we'd get somebody for the winter and whatnot. How does that stand?
Yeah, I think that's great. The program is also, I believe it's 35 and under.
I'm sorry?
It's
Oh,
not
thir-
just
Yes,
students.
yes.
So the program can be
Sorry.
used on, no, but that's an additional thing. So say if we aren't successful with a student, maybe we get somebody younger that's thinking of career
That's right.
change.
Yeah.
Right? So it doesn't limit us, and if, I just like to see how that works, and maybe it works into, trucks are in working order for winter. We want to continue on with that additional person.
How are we with that? That would address your not hiring anybody right now, Councillor Fleeler.
Well, your worship, I will support the effort to put more casual workers to work in the summertime.
Okay,
I will support that.
Okay.
I know there's a need for that.
Okay,
but I can't see otherwise, like hiring
That's
another
fine.
full timer.
we will review that come the fall and then we'll see if we got anything more. Okay, go ahead, Councillor.
So really, really quickly, just to build on that. So in the event that we didn't get any funding, and we're talking about enhancing the wage,
Mhm.
which I would suggest should be very close, if not the same as the entry level wage to somebody starting in the department. Are we willing to go ahead and do that even if we don't get the funding?
Oh, I think for the
I think-
summer period, I
I-
would,
do
because
too.
then what might end up happening is that one of those individuals, if we decide that we want to post in the fall for a full-time, one of those individuals might actually want to
Yeah.
apply and they've had the experience, so. Yes, go ahead,
Through the mayor, Gloria, what would be the financial implications of a wage top up like that?
What's
She actually just trying to roughly estimate that because I don't have those spreadsheets with me, but because of the summer program, estimating approximately 2 students, because we apply for grants for 3 positions, but we hire 5 across all the departments. If we can get the IA resumes. So you'd be looking at about probably $2,000 per employee, give or take. So you'd be looking about $4 to $5,000 approximately without my formal calculator.
What's
here.
it put it at from the minimum wage, like as
So if we were going to approximately the lower level
Yeah.
of the wage grid, it'd be going from 18 to approximately $24, which is about a 33%.
Okay,
So that's why I'm just saying it's up.
Absolutely.
I do too.
So, Mayor, can I put a motion forward?
Well, we have one on the
We have
table.
one on the table.
Okay, I haven't heard exactly what it is here yet. It was all over the board here. so-
Yeah, we're kind of,
Well, right now, I believe the way it's been reworded it in there.
Go ahead, Lori. Lori, could you read that for us? Thank you.
Just from your wording, I just kind of summarized it to say that you would receive the additional public works operator report as presented, and further that the student casual employee wage be increased for 2025 with an option to review the hiring of an additional public works operator in the fall of 2025.
Can I just add to
That's
that?
okay. Pardon me.
Can I just add something? And further that the wage top up be transferred from the gravel reserves. That money for that extra wages, can we do that?
The $4,000.
The $4,000 from that to the wage.
Well, okay, well, is that across the board for all the departments that are having a student or just for public works?
Well, you're saying $2,000 an employee, basically?
Yeah, which there's only 2 employees in Public Works,
right.
2 in Parks and 1 at the jail.
So we've got a $10,000. I would almost say take it from gravel and transfer it to those,
From the gravel
to attract
program,
better,
not
to-
the
to-
reserve.
well, from the gravel to the wages, that $10,000 in an effort to attract the summer help.
I,
Go,
Keep-
okay, Councilor Valiquette, then Councilor.
yeah,
Pelletier. You go.
oh, sorry. So I think that's a great idea. I think that because there's some interoperability between these employees from department to department, depending on pressures, seems like a logical place to do that.
just keep butting heads. I just like to see a full gravel program. So you said something about the reserve? Pulling from the
No,
reserve.
he had mentioned reserve, but the aggregate reserve fund that we have is very specific when it was established for the closure of all of our aggregate pits. And so we can't pull it from the aggregate reserve fund, but you could pull from the gravel program. Which would drop it only then 10,000 instead of the 55,000 original suggestion in that report.
Are you prepared to look at?
I'd rather not spend the gravel, but let's move this along.
Okay, yes, Councilor Fleeler?
Your worship, I've noticed, in the last, well, for quite some time that we have a stockpile of gravel at the Esker Road pit. I'm not sure how much gravel's there, but I would say 80 to 100 ton of crushed gravel. Is that included? Is that included in our gravel program this year? That 100 ton or what?
If we use it, so if that gravel, so that gravel there is typically used more for construction type ones where we're trying to fill in around culverts as opposed to the actual gravel roads. I believe the public works manager can speak more, just the quality type versus difference
What's the
between the
difference
top
quality?
layer versus a bottom layer. And unfortunately, he's not available today to speak to that, but so there is some there. If we pull out of that, then yes, it's uses part of our gravel program because there'll be costs then that we'll have to pay for the lease agreement for every ton that we pull out. As well as the trucking it from our own site. So that would be part of the gravel program if we use it. So if that amount's not used this year, then it would not be part of that gravel program.
Okay, thank you.
Your worship, as far as the cost savings though, we've already paid to have this gravel crushed. So I mean, yes, we would have to pay whatever the costs are, but the crushing expense has already been paid out. So if we're looking to save money, we've got approximately 80 to 100 ton of gravel sitting there.
What I've just heard though is that it's the caliber of the gravel.
But
And so this is more rough gravel, which is not necessarily good for gravel roads, but is good for construction type projects. That's what I just heard.
That is my understanding, yes.
So we would still use it in regards to those kinds of things, like when we're gonna be working on our bridges that have to be done.
Yeah, and so in that case, it doesn't come out of the gravel program, it goes to the construction project costs line instead. So that the cost for that gravel that's already crushed doesn't get applied until we know what project it's hitting.
Okay,
So it
so
goes to the
right
right
now,
account.
we're dealing with this employment thing, so let's get back to dealing with that. Now, the option was to draw the 10,000 from the gravel fund for this year. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, I know you're voting.
Yeah, okay, all in favor?
your shoulder.
All in favor? Okay, thank you. So do you want to read that to us?
Yes,
just so-
please.
yeah.
Just to make sure. So originally there was a motion to take it all from the gravel and to hire someone. So we're going to vote on that it will be not carried. And then we'll go to the second one because
Okay.
it was brought onto the floor
Yes,
originally,
okay,
right?
okay,
So the first one was, be it resolved that council receive the additional works operator report as presented, and further that council authorize the hiring of one public operator in 2025. And that the budget be adjusted to reflect these additional costs and funded 55,000 from gravel roads program for 2025 with a phased-in option to be budgeted from future taxations. I believe that was the first motion.
That was
that's
the
right.
first one, yes.
Okay, so we just need to vote on that.
No, all in favor? No,
That's
okay.
defeated. And then the second motion is, be it resolved that council receive the additional public works operator report as presented. And further that the public works student casual employee wage be increased for 2025 and be funded from the gravel program with an option to review the consideration of hiring an additional public works operator in fall of 2025.
Right, and I think, can we just add the amount that we're going to increase that wage to, which is the minimum,
If you're gonna raise it, you're raising it for all student and
That's
casual,
right.
because we're not
Oh,
department
okay.
specific
Yes.
for them
Okay, so I'll
in our
take the
bylaw.
public works.
So
And
it's
good-
for all student.
and we're gonna put in, it's the lower, the
Entry level.
Entry level of the position they're filling.
Just to the mayor, are we putting a cap on the amount of subsidy we're putting into this? $10,000? Like,
well, no, we're,
okay.
That's the approximate
That's right.
estimate
Okay.
of the difference
We won't
between
know.
what $18 per hour plus the new rates would be.
okay.
It's a rough estimate. I could get the exact number, but that will take me.
Go ahead, Lori, you want to read that to us again, once you get it typed up?
So be it resolved that council receive the additional public works operator report as presented. And further that the student casual employee wage be increased for 2025 to the entry level position. And be funded from the gravel program of approximately $10,000 with an option to review the consideration of hiring an additional public works operator in the fall of 2025.
All in favor? Thank you. Okay, on, Gloria.
So the next one, the mayor has referenced in his comments at the beginning was a report on the one-time police cost savings. So I have a formal request in here to have 50% of the one-time savings they grant us to be put into a reserve to be used for 2026, as it is highly unlikely that they're going to give us another 183,000 relief in 2026 as well. So the recommendation is that we put aside 92,580 into the reserves in 2025 to be pulled out for 2026 police budget.
And then if
then-
the province should say, no, we are going to continue absorbing that, we would pull that money out of reserve and put it towards whatever the tax increase would have been
Yeah,
in 2020.
yeah, and you can change that motion once you know
That's right.
in next year's budgeting for 2026.
Mayor, what's the tax implication of that reduction? Or like,
So it's about
1.5%.
yeah, so it's about 1.5. So we were originally sitting for policing at a 4.38% or something like that. The decrease they gave us left us with a 1% still. And then when we take half of that, that's another 1.5. So we'll be looking at about a 2.25%, 2.5% increase tax overall for the police increase this year, with hopefully no more than that in 2026.
And we are identifying that. We are, in our new tax bill, we are splitting that out now. So the tax bill will actually show what the policing costs are costing this community.
Yeah, which will be done as an area rate. So when that bylaw does come forward, basically you'll have a new section in it where you're passing the regular tax rates, and then you'll pass an area rate that will apply to the whole municipality. So the whole area will be the whole municipality, but then that way it's shown separately on the tax bill, the amount for policing costs for the residents.
Any questions? Yes, Council Flynn.
Your worship, just a comment. And I've said this before, we need to get the municipalities to fight this thing right to the end. And I know you stated the same thing, but we just can't let this thing drop.
I don't think people are going to. There was a huge outcry on this one, like a huge outcry from mayors across small rural and northern Ontario. So I don't think people are going to let this go, even if it comes back and they say, sorry, you're going to now have to pay for it all. The fight's just going to get worse again. So,
And your worship, like, it's
I know.
it's one of these. Here you go. You support me?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, we gotta get away from that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We need to fight together for everything we need to accomplish, everything.
Agreed. Okay. So did we vote on that last thing? No. All in favor?
You need a move.
Oh, could I have a move in a seconder? Sorry. Deputy Mayor DeMarsh and Councillor Valiquette. Okay, Lori, could you read?
Certainly. Be it resolved that council receive the one-time police cost savings report as presented, and further that council authorize the 2025 budget to reflect $92,580 of reduced policing costs to be transferred to reserve for 2026 budget purposes.
All in favor? Thank you. Okay, could I ask for just a quick little recess?
I think.
Okay, thanks.
We're back from our break. The next request that was brought forward was to merge the reimbursements for the boots and safety clothing for the departments. So this was a concern that was brought forward that in some years, the boots are able to last more than a year, but they might need to buy more, like an extra pair of pants or an extra shirt because they're getting torn or ripped on our equipment. And so the request was that we merge the $250 boot reimbursement and the $350 safety clothing reimbursement into one pot of 600. So it doesn't change your budget, but it allows them that if they need to spend 300 on boots this year, they buy a little less clothes, and then next year, because they spend a little more on better boots, they'll be able to buy the extra clothes they didn't get this year. It doesn't change your budget, and it will address some of those issues where ones are replacing boots when they don't necessarily need to every year because they feel they would lose it otherwise.
Could I have a mover and a seconder to get that on the table? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Demarche. Thank you, Councillor Fleeler. Any questions? Seeing none, be it resolved that council receive the request to merge reimbursements for boots and safety clothing equipment as presented, and further that council authorize staff to bring an amending bylaw to January council meeting for amendment of bylaw 2023-2025 to merge sections 3.3 I and 3.3 Roman numeral 1 and 3.3 Roman numeral 3 into one reimbursement for a total of 600, subject to some submissions of receipts. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, next request.
The last
Can I have a
request-
mover and a seconder to request to authorize the purchase of used tandem snowplow? A mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Valiquette. Thank you, Councillor Palmetier. Over to you, Gloria.
So this one comes from, during this last year, there was an opportunity that came up, but unfortunately, it wasn't brought to my attention until 3 p.m. on the afternoon of one day, and the closing of the online auction was the next morning at 10, and because it wasn't budgeted, there was no way for us to actually get it on to a council agenda within those few hours. But there was an opportunity to purchase 2 used plow trucks that were in really good condition. So there's certain municipalities that have policies where they replace every 5 years. Their vehicles will be in still really good condition and could save us a lot of funds. As a new plow is about $400,000 or more if we have to finance it, which is pretty much what we're looking at for most of our vehicle purchases for the next little while, without reserves. Whereas the 2 plows that we were looking at online had went that next morning for 80,000 apiece. So we're just looking for basically an authorization to kind of put in the budget. So up to 95,000 that would allow us to bid on these type of opportunities. And then if there's no opportunity that is appropriate during the year, that amount would just go into the reserve for then next year's like 2026 funding of that. It just will eliminate then one of the new ones that we need to order and purchase, because right now we have 2 that would need to be ordered this year in 2025 if we want to see them in 2026, and each one's 400,000 a piece. Whereas if we can replace one of those with an 80,000 one and still get a good 5-10 years out of it, we will be saving a lot of money for the residents. So we're just looking for that ability to do that. But that would be a 95,000. You're looking at about 1.5, almost 2% tax impact.
Councillor Valiquette.
So I think this is an excellent idea because the potential for us to save a considerable amount of money, not only in the purchase price, but in what we'd be paying in interest on a loan, is not immeasurable, but certainly very impactful from a municipality perspective. I am curious. So the ones that were bid on had like 150,000 kilometers on them, and they were 5 years old, I believe.
They were 2017, so yeah.
So I'm curious what mileage we would have on our oldest plow right now.
Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to get that information, but it is in excess of 300,000 kilometers.
And we see them all the time, right? The repair bills keep going up and up and up the older these vehicles get. So yeah, I think that yes, I support this.
Yes, Councillor Palmetier.
Your worship, My only concern is there enough money to allow them to make a decision?
Oh,
To
you
buy
mean-
a good quality,
I mean, it might be, maybe higher to,
like maybe 120, something, just,
Yeah.
I don't wanna miss out on quality over a couple $1,000
right.
when it is so significant compared to the
Yeah.
cost of a new one.
okay, Councilor Valiquette, then to Gloria.
So really quickly, I think what's interesting about us doing this and allowing the manager to kind of move ahead is he also now has the option of exploring prior to something actually going on Gov Deals, right? He's more aware of municipalities that do this, so he can reach out ahead of time, which I think is also beneficial to us.
So what we have right now has sort of been amended to go up to 120.
Yeah,
Okay,
just
Gloria.
to give the explanation of where the 95 came from, it's under our current purchasing bylaw, the procurement one. It requires anything at $100,000 has to have a council approval prior to it proceeding. There's no exceptions in it for that. Unless it's something that's because of a court case, like something else like that. So that's why we chose the 95, because managers have, or CAO would have the ability to approve up to 100,000. And that's kind of their ceiling before council has to be involved. And that's where our concern was, is if we're doing it through these auctions, we may not have a lot of time to get it onto a council agenda, which is why we were keeping it under that. Now you could put into this motion maybe that there's an exception for this purchase if you want to go up to 120 from the procurement policy. But that was where the 95 came from, because we can do up to 100,000 max, but we can do up to our budget plus 5% to a minimum of the 5,000. So that's where the 100,000 kind of, the 95 came in.
I
But
think if we apply it to equipment and knowing the cost of equipment and how expensive that is for us, that to follow through on what Councillor Palmetier said, if we cap it at 120, make this as an exception, because we don't want to lose any opportunities where we could save significant dollars for this
yeah,
municipality.
and a report would be required to come to council regardless after
That's
it
right.
happens. But that was where we picked the
Okay.
95, is we were trying to stay within the procurement.
Any other? Yes, go ahead.
Just a question, your worship, the CAO, like, so would we, as a council, when we give this approval for 120,000, are we saying it on equipment, or are we specifically saying on a plow truck?
So you can specify, it was specifically in his request for a used tandem snowplow. So it would be very specific to a plow unless you want to open that to one of the others. But right now we have 2 plows that we need to order this year to have for 2026, or replace one of them now with a used one if we can find a good suitable used one. So it's very specific to a plow
Yeah.
for this
Yeah,
motion.
keeping it specific really allows us to
Okay,
pick that price point, I think, and allow us to trust our manager with that amount for a specific thing.
Councillor Valiquette, you're looking pensive.
Yeah. And the manager could come back to us on off years and say, I'd like to open that up for a grader this year. And I think it gives them the flexibility, but also gives us an element of guidance.
And if something like that did come up, which is another piece of equipment that we did need, okay, and it was not covered by this. As soon as they see it listed, they should be reaching out to us then in that case, so that we can even make some kind of arrangement. Okay, but right now we leave it, as we say, to the snowplow tandems. Okay, any other questions on that? Yes, Councillor Fleeler.
Your worship, the only thing I would be afraid of and might not be something to really worry about, but it's buyer beware, so we would have to research in detail what we're purchasing.
Yes,
That's,
agreed.
and I would imagine that would be done.
That's right, I would
Okay.
agree. Thank you. So all in favor? Thank you. You're okay? Okay, you have it, you've written, okay, one moment. Sorry, so to close out. Okay, the recommendation is, be it resolved, the council accept the request to authorize the purchase of a used tandem snowplow when a suitable one becomes available at a value of not more than 120,000. And to allow this as an exception in our procurement policy. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, over to user fees. Pardon Okay, Gloria, let's start with general user fees.
So yeah, so with the general user fees,
section, Gloria?
oh, sorry, this will all be in section 3 of the binder. So there's been no specific items in the general user fees that we feel should be increased. Specifically, we do know that we had several large increases for the 2024 year. And some of that has, like when we increased the marriage license one, it has cut down on the number of marriage license where people were driving hours to get to us because we were the cheapest in Ontario. They're no longer doing that. So raising some of these prices anymore will actually probably lower our revenue because we have less of them that we'll be doing. So it's just more as long as there's not a specific item that council would like to discuss.
I was wondering, like, we have money in our budgets to eventually move to a development fee. But in the absence of having that right now, can we up our Parkland fee or are we only restricted to $750?
So Parkland fee is actually established under the Planning Act, and to change it, you have to have a study completed and public
So it's the same thing. that
meeting.
we're doing.
Yeah, you're gonna,
Okay.
it's
Nope.
not as
more.
onerous as the development charge one, but it will
Okay.
take a couple months to do.
No,
It's
that's
not
okay.
you can't just pass it.
Okay. I have no questions on any of these fees and operating under what you have said. Is there anybody who had questions, comments? Okay, so is there a motion on this to leave the
Not-
minutes? Just let it go?
Not on this one, no.
Okay, okay.
The next one, there was a report.
The bulk
So
items.
we specifically with the bulk items, we did receive notice that the tipping fees that the vendor that we use that takes them out of our landfill and takes them to another one is going up on January 1st. And so he transfers that down to us. So there's no markup on that piece. We pay exactly what it is for tipping. The only amount that he gets to keep, or his company keeps, is the amount that we pay for the bin rental, basically. So I did a report there calculating what the actual cost recovery amount would be for that, as we have passed policies in the past that it would be cost recoverable plus $10 for going into the reserve fund to help repair any damage to the site of the bigger trucks coming in and taking the bins out. So the cost recovery will be basically increasing now to $185.08 per ton. So if we tack on the $10, that would be $195 fee. So we're just looking to see, did you want us to increase it to just to the 185, the 185.08, or the 195?
Let's go with the 195. That's a cost recoverable. Yep.
So,
Sorry, go ahead.
your worship,
Yep.
why don't we just round it off at $200?
Yep, I agree.
Like,
Agree.
okay.
Okay. All.
Yeah. Your
Okay.
worship,
Yep.
I like the consistency with the $10 over, and the reason is because it doesn't affect our taxes at all. It doesn't actually, it just goes into the bag tag reserve.
Right.
So it's not like this is an additional income for the town, other than,
Well, what
Bag
would
tag.
happen then? It would be $15 as opposed to 10. that
Yeah, it would be
going into-
15 going into the reserve
That's
fund
right.
as opposed to 10.
That's right.
But yeah, so it doesn't help your tax rate.
No,
You're correct.
but I mean, like, we're building up that fund, which is also good because we're not building up anything really when it comes to reserve funds. Yeah.
just your worship, my concern is always just these items building up in the ditch. So that's always my concern with bulk items, things like furniture and stuff.
It's going to be there regardless. $5 isn't going to make a difference if somebody doesn't want to drop it off at the municipal website. I mean, website. Website.
That'll be neat.
Sorry, go ahead, Councilor Cleta.
So your worship, I agree with Councilor Palmer about the stuff being thrown out along the road, and I'm gonna tell you, we need to nail some of these guys and need to nail them hard.
Yeah.
We've caught them, let them go, caught them, let them go. We need to nail them.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so be it resolved that council receive the change in bulk item prices report as presented. And further that council authorize a rate change for bulk items to $200. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to include in here, because of this change, our minimum load amount should also increase to at least be cost recoverable,
Mhm.
which is $35 minimum charge from the previous 30.
Okay,
we'll need to put that in. Sorry, I forgot to include that in the motion. That's my fault there.
I'll wait till Lori is able to add that.
For the
To
the
30.
loads under 350 pounds minimum charge to $35.
35.
I apologize. I forgot that piece. Yeah.
Okay. Be it resolved that council, did we have a mover and a seconder? Could I get a mover and a seconder to table the change of bulk price? And thank you, Councillor Valiquette. Thank you, Councillor Palmetier. Be it resolved that council receive the change in bulk item prices report as presented. And further that council authorize a rate change for bulk items to $200 per ton and a rate change for loads under 350 pounds to a minimum charge of 35 effective January 1st, 2025. And further the council authorize staff to bring forward the amending bylaw to enact the rate change. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, moving on to waste user fees.
Yeah, so this is just on here with no other suggested changes to the other waste amounts unless council wishes to consider a rate change on any other waste fees.
No, I'm fine. Okay, so moving on, there's no motion on that, no.
No,
Water and
unless
sewer,
there's a change.
water and sewer rates, there's no vote on this either?
No, because this one, we had discussed the change in a previous budget meeting. There doesn't need to be another one telling us to update this bylaw because we already have that
Okay.
on the books, basically.
Okay, so water and sewer rates, go ahead, Gloria.
So as was discussed at the last budget meeting, the motion that's been put out there and is that the water and sewer quarterly rates for a residential connection will go to $144.66 each. So we're now matching water and sewer to the same rate. The double rates will be 2 times that, the 4 units will be 4 times that rate, and so forth down, but it would be $144.66 for water and $144.66 for sewer, which is,
Representing an increase of how much?
sorry. It's no increase on the sewer. The only one would be water.
And it's just roughly, just to give us an idea,
So it's $29 per quarter. So
120 a year.
yeah.
Okay, good, thank you. Yes, Councillor
So-
Wheeler.
Your worship, so what's the total cost for water then per year?
So that can be found on page 7.5 in your binder. The operating cost for water is estimated for 2025 to be 351,000, give or take a couple $100 here and there. With the rate of $144.66, that will approximately bring in 440,000, which gives us about just shy of 90,000 towards our capital needs going forward.
So would we have any, like we're putting money in reserve?
Yes, so that's with 136,000 going into reserves. And so some going into reserves, some going for the current capital piece. The current year's capital items, yes.
Yeah, so your worship, the only thing that concerns me is that we've got quite a few people on fixed income.
Yeah.
And I know it's a user pay thing. I just don't wanna bludgeon them to the point, like we're last year we handed them a 17.8% increase in taxes plus a 3% increase in water and sewer. So that's 20%. Like
I don't think anybody is comfortable with any of these increases, but when we're in a situation where we're hanging on by a thread as well as our residents, we got to make some drastic decisions, unfortunately. And then when we can, we will reach out to county to help where we can, where they can, in helping individuals. But sometimes you gotta make some really tough decisions and we're in that situation.
Yeah, so your worship, the other side of the coin is that we contribute 40-some%. So we increase the taxes, we give 44% of that money to the province. What do we get from the province? What have we gotten
Oh,
from the province?
yeah, I know.
Like, we need,
I
like I
know,
said,
I know.
this fight, we need to continue this fight. We can't be at the end of a dangled carrot. We need to, and we can't be pushed aside because we're small town Ontario. We need to wake some people up and make them understand that we just can't survive.
I know, Councillor Flair, and I don't think anybody will say that this council has not been very vocal.
exactly,
You,
exactly.
Councillor Valley-Cat, all of us here, in my fight, we're doing the best we can to bring recognition to the dire needs that small rural municipalities, including ours, are in. And that fight will continue. Okay, we will continue to do so. Any other questions? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Mayor, I put a lot of thought into this and, you know, like you had said, we're in a difficult position. And I agree with Councillor Fleeter to the point of affordability. A lot of municipalities do their billing either monthly or bi-monthly. And I, from what I'm hearing in those communities, they find that easier to budget for than all of a sudden hand them a $300 slap every quarter. I know it's every quarter and they can put it away for it, but that $300 bill is a huge deal to them. Is there a way that maybe we could bill out monthly and then every quarter we do the meter read and update any overages? Is that something that I know our postal thing's gonna go up and everything else, but in order to help our residents along, I think $100 a month it looks a lot better coming in my mailbox than all of a sudden a $300 one.
So, with that, there would be, yes, additional administrative costs, the extra mailings, the extra paper, the envelopes, the additional staff time for processing the water and sewer bills. We do offer and we do advertise it as much as we can. We put it in all of our tax notices and we put them in water and sewer bills that we do offer monthly payment plans. So if somebody wants to be on an automatic withdrawal to us where a certain amount comes out every month, then they only get a bill for the difference. We do offer that and we do strongly encourage residents to use that if they want to help with the budgeting aspect of it. For us to switch from a complete quarterly billing to any other format, we do have to give a certain amount of notice before we do that with the residents and have a public meeting on just that piece of it. So it is something that could be done, but at this point, the fastest method of trying to provide relief to the residents, as these rates we always do it effective July 1st. So they won't see this change until the third quarter billing that's processed at the end of September. But we strongly encourage, and I would say that we just keep pushing that if people would like help on that budgeting aspect, that they can join on to our monthly pre-authorized plan and help them be able to spread the $300 across 100 per month or whatever.
Well, I think if we have an option and it's there, this is the concern that Deputy Mayor Demarche has raised, so I'm good with that. Yes, go ahead.
Just to follow up, Mayor, just from chatting with other townships and municipalities that do this, we are one of the few that do it quarterly. Most of them do it every bi-monthly. So that's something maybe down the road we can look at, and this would certainly help with people that aren't taking advantage of that and just get a bill in their mailbox.
Well, we can definitely look at it down the road. I'm going to say right now with I think postage and all of that, it's going to increase our costs significantly, which means those rates might have to go up even more. So let's continue to do what we do, and maybe in another year we can revisit that situation. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Demarche. I would debate Councillor Fleeler.
Your worship, just a point, we have an opportunity to pay bills by e-transfer and the provider charges 3%. We need to make the public aware that if they pay by e-transfer, I think they're gonna get nailed 3%. Is that true?
No,
it
would be
depends
charge
on each
card.
bank.
Oh, it depends on the
So
bank,
it's
okay.
whatever you have arranged with your own bank for your specific account. We don't charge anything if we
No,
receive
we
an
don't.
e-transfer.
Yeah, the provider.
But each one is different. So I know out of my own personal bank, I don't pay any service
Yeah,
charge for
not-
doing an e-transfer,
either,
but
do-
other people do. So it's
got it.
the type of account you have.
Okay, good,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're good to go
Yeah.
then.
And it kind of leads nicely into this next one where we're comparing our user rates and our tax rates to other municipalities. We just talked about the water rate, and yes, it will be going up from twenty
That's on
twenty-four.
page, which page is that on here?
Sorry, yes, sorry, that will be page,
331.
yes.
Thank
So
you.
the numbers are on the 331, and then the next couple of pages are the actual graphs. The first one will be the tax rate comparison. Because there are some people who find viewing it visually is a little easier. So the tax one might change here because we did just make some adjustments for some additional tax impacted items with putting in that plow truck 120,000. So this won't be perfect, but you can see that we are still below the average for the region. And our 2020, and that's the 2024 average. Those are all the 2024 rates for everyone except for our last column. So this is our 25 compared to 24, and the 24's average. And so we compare ourselves within the county to Bancroft, Marmora Lake, Center Hastings, and Sterling Rawdon, as there are other ones that have a urban and rural piece.
Okay.
The water rate, you can see we are also below the average. Now on this one, the average is a little skewed because of Bancroft's numbers, where every quarter they pay just over $350 in water. But it puts us on par with Center Hastings and Sterling's
That's right.
2024 rates.
Good. Thank you.
And then the sewer, again, is drastically skewed on the average because of Bancroft, which pays over $600 per quarter for sewer rates. So they're paying about $1,000 a quarter for water and sewer. But with us keeping it the same, keeping our sewer rate the same as 2024. We're a little more than Center Hastings, but we're below Sterling and Marmora. So we're about kind of where the average, if you exclude Bancroft.
My
would
God,
approximately
Bancroft,
be.
they were huge.
We took on that big expense.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
if you get into a financial situation on water or sewer where the province has to step in, you will be forced to make it a full proper cost recovery based off of consultants' calculations, including all capital aspects, regardless of whether people can afford it or not. So you want to try to get ahead of that before you're in that type of a situation.
Okay, so that's good. Any other questions?
Your worship, just a comment. I do think water and sewer is probably the healthiest area
Yeah.
in our municipality.
Yeah.
We have clean, safe drinking water, and we have the ability to manage more than we have in the municipality. And seeing the rates up there, after doing a lot of that work already, it's nice to see that we have lots coming down the line, but that we're still okay.
Good, thank you. Gloria, I'm just gonna digress here for a moment, sorry, everyone, but has Aqua got back to us with the lining of the water tower and that proposal to see if it can be done
So
by spot fixing?
if we approve our budget the way we have it right now, it approves, I think it was 5,000 to go towards that assessment.
But they
Sorry,
have-
8,000 to go to that assessment. So if we approve our budget, they will hopefully get someone for no more than 8 to do the inspection, and then that will identify what we need to do and how long we have to do it.
Okay, so they haven't done anything yet on that?
No, because they
Okay.
need us to approve the
Okay,
budget
good.
first.
Thank you, thank you. Because Gloria, if we had to reline that, how much is it again roughly?
Their best guess was 650,000
Isn't that
if
wild?
we do it today.
Isn't that wild?
And then of course, every year there's inflationary impacts.
Okay, good. Okay, budget summary, moving over to overall budget summary, 2025, Gloria, so far.
Yeah, so right now, the
In the
operating,
binder we're on,
you would be in section 1, sorry.
it's okay.
When I'm working
It's just-
between
I've got it
electronic
here.
and binder, I forget
Yes.
sometimes. So I think I've captured all the changes that we've talked about today as well. So you'd be looking at operating revenues of about 10,800,000 and operating expenses of 9.8 million. You would have capital based off of our capital discussions of 9.5 million for revenues to offset 10.5 million of expenses. So basically 957,000 would be coming from taxes, and part of that is the transfer to reserve, or sorry, taxes or user fees. So anything water or sewer is obviously not tax-based, it's coming out of the water and sewer rates. And so most of the transfers to reserves there, that 400,000 is mostly our repayment of loans to the bag tag reserve fund for the internal loans we took, as well as the water and sewer amount. So that 480,000 is restricted to basically 3 reserves that cannot be used for any general needs. It's only for those very specific departments.
What is the total amount, other than what you just said, going to reserves as a payback, are we putting in this budget to reserves?
Sorry, I just find where that shows. We have 157 coming out of the non-departmental, so the OMPF to pay back the general reserve or the general loan. And then there is in roads, paying back some old road program ones, 89,000. So those are the reserve fund loans
Right, but are we putting anything other than a loan payment back into a funding for
into the
reserves?
bag tag now.
No, I mean, just in reserves in general,
Water and sewer only.
water and sewer only. So like, we're not building up our reserves, we're still operating on a shoestring here. So that if
Yes.
this is, but an issue has been, when some of this funding comes forward, you've got to have money to be able to conduct these studies, and then we don't have any money to be able to pull out of reserves to be able to conduct these studies. And as we all know, first of all, these studies can be quite expensive, and secondly, it doesn't mean you're going to get the grant anyway once you do the filing of the application. So what do? Do we continue to have nothing in reserves? Do we add anything to reserves? We're looking at, okay.
So with that, I had a note here to discuss that aspect with everybody in addition to one other item.
Water
But-
rights,
Pardon?
water rights.
No, the Hunt Road. Oh, yes, sorry,
Sorry.
I heard water rates. Sorry,
Okay,
my
water
hearing's not helping me today.
Okay,
So I know in previous meetings, we had pulled out the Hunt Road closure aspect and the land water rights. Looking into it and researching it, if we do not follow our ECA and the province has to step in and acquire those land water rights, which right now our extended ECA has granted us the water rights to the end of 2025 and the closure to the end of 28 with final report of April of 29. That if they do it and they pay for it, they will take it out of our OMPF. So we might as well put it in. It doesn't change your tax because it's
pulling out
funded.
reserves.
It's coming out of that bag tag reserve fund. That's what that reserve fund is there for, is to close the 2 landfill sites we have eventually. So I recommend that we put back in 250,000 and it pulls from the reserve because we are going to have to acquire quite a bit of water rights. Hopefully we can do it a lot less than that. But if we come across some difficulties, we might have to even go through the expropriation piece for just the water rights. Because we have to have those registered on title before December 31st of 25,
And this government,
the water rights.
we even talked about not paying our OPP, like, but then we knew that they would claw back all of our funding, so we get screwed one way or another.
Yeah.
So if we've got the money in reserve and it's not going to impact the taxation base, I would suggest that we proceed with that, because we've got that deadline and we do not want them coming in and starting to do God knows what, and then costing us even more in the end. Yes, Councillor Valleycat.
So just going back to a discussion a couple minutes ago about water and sewer rates in Bancroft. That's what happens when the province comes in and takes over.
Yeah.
You lose control, and we don't want to lose control of this when we can manage it ourselves.
Especially if we've got the money, and that's what it was intended for originally.
That doesn't mean though that when we're supposed to actually do the closure, we couldn't ask for an extension again. The physical closure,
Yes.
because we would have the water rights
That's
and we
right.
could try to push that closure back another
That's
5
right.
years.
We could talk about what a big strain that was on the community to do so,
Yeah.
citing that it actually represented, I guess at this point, a
10%.
10% tax increase. Like, we could position it with the province in such a way. Are we okay to proceed with doing that? Okay,
Okay.
let's do that, Gloria. Now let's go back,
So,
To
yes,
res-
so if you want to transfer into reserves,
Yes.
for every 1% tax rate, you are looking at 55,000 going to reserves. And I know before anybody
right,
wants to actually make a decision there, they're gonna know what the tax tax levy increase is. So right now we're sitting at 13.21%, sorry.
okay.
So that's where we're currently sitting. With nothing going to reserves other than the restricted water and sewer user-based ones and the reserve fund loan repayments for waste. Which again is restricted to the closure of those 2 landfills.
We currently have 2 big applications into the province for funding.
Yes,
We have one for the Housing Enabling Water System Fund, and then we also have some for our bridges in, I think.
the housing enabling core infrastructure.
Structure.
Yes,
And that's for Flinton Road and for Queensboro Bridge and
Kinlan
Kinlan
Bridge
Bridge, yeah.
and the other bridge,
So-
Rocky Altar. Yes, thank you.
so. What if, and don't jump all over me, okay? What if we put in there, we have a 2% addition to reserves, contingent, okay, that we get our funding from our applications. And if we get our funding, we withdraw the 2% going into reserves. So we put it onto the province to come forward with money, because to keep it down to the 13%, we could, I'm just throwing that out. Do people understand what I was saying? Okay, what we're gonna need money to put into reserves to be able to do some studies or to do some work that we're gonna need to have done. But we can link it to the funding applications that we have. So that if the province comes through with the funding that we need, we will not put that money into reserves and reduce our tax rate from 15 to 13. Okay, if they don't, we're gonna have to put that money in there because we gotta start building up those reserves and we're not getting anywhere with this province. Hopefully, they're gonna come forward. I'm thinking we are gonna get some good news. We've been denied ever since we've been on council. Okay, we're going into 3rd year. And the province is moving into election mode and Roma is coming up and it's often and we're not approving this budget today. Roma is often an occasion for them to start announcing the funding that they're going to be giving to municipalities. Rick Resi is well aware of what our needs are. He will lobby on our behalf. So hopefully we're going to get some like really good news because we have had absolutely nothing. And this is going into the year 3. So if that was the case and they came forward, we won't put money into reserves this year because we've got a lot of other things we've got to do. I know we need to build on it, but I've got to be cognizant of the fact that we've had a 17.8 and then we could be at a 15. Councillor Fleeler.
Your worship, I might have to move out of my residence if we put that. So I don't know. The Flinton Road project. I've traveled that road a few times. I don't think it's a.
Don't worry, that's only if we get funding.
Yeah, but the other thing, we've got that steamer on the line. I don't think. I think we could get away with a single unit at a quarter of the price. My opinion. I don't know, but I think we need to look at all these things. I think we need to get that. We need to take a good 3% off this budget, 3.5%. I don't know how we're gonna do it, but. And we talk about the gravel situation. Well, like we've got 100 ton of gravel sitting there. Maybe, I don't know how much is there, but up to 100 ton. And it doesn't meet specs. Well, what do we need the specs for? We've got 70% of our roads are gravel roads. And that's the reason we crush that gravel was to put on our roads. I don't understand. I don't, je n'ai pas de comprenez-vous. I don't understand. I I think we need to take a hard, long look. And I know it's time consuming and it's frustrating, but we need to figure this thing out. I don't think we need spec gravel anywhere, myself. We've been doing this thing for years. There's other things that also ditch diggings are being brought back to the site and at the wayside or to one of our pits from Flinton. Why is this? What does that cost us? We need to look at what we change before we change it. There's a necessity for some things and there's no reason for other things, my opinion. But we need to and we need to work with the vendors that are gonna help us. We've had opportunities. We've called for people to come and talk to us. We've had 2 people come and talk to us about bridges and culverts.
That will all be, we're gonna pursue all of those angles.
And they offered to help us. They didn't offer to take our money. They
Nope.
offered to help us.
And they are in our good books and they're gonna help us keep our costs down where we can. Anybody else, any comments? Yes, Councillor Palmetier.
Your worship, I think, like we've said, nobody wants to see these numbers. Everything costs more. I know people see that, like I know I'm stating the obvious to the group here, but the people expect when their tax rate goes up that they see more happen. All of the expenses we're dealing with are so much more. And a lot of these expenses that have led to the increase are not expenses in our control. Now, moving forward, something that this council has done to try to reduce that, making cuts only gets you so far. Increasing our tax base is the only way that we are going to sustain this municipality. So we do need to spend some of those monies to have these development fees and to push forward so we can grow so that more homes can share the burden. So I know it's tough and everybody's going to be phoning us. Everyone's going to be telling us they're moving out of this municipality. And unfortunately, I don't know where they're going to go in this province. That's the unfortunate reality right now in Ontario is the burden is spread all across the province. It is not just the municipality of Tweed that's doing this. A lot of the longtime residents here, we're lucky for a lot of years. And it's an unfortunate thing that we're starting to pay for now.
Thank you very much. And I just want to follow up on one thing, just to talk about, in 2019, we were looking at pricing a new fire truck, 650,000. Today, it's in the budget at 1.11 million. 1.1 million. Now, we are pulling out some money out of our reserve there to start putting a bid, like, you know, to get one in, to get in the queue, because it's going to take at least 2.5 years, maybe 3 years to get it. But what's it going to be by that time? Hopefully it can lock in the price. I don't know. But 650 to 1.1 million, almost double the price. And we're seeing that in everything that we do. Now, Gloria, if you look at this, can you give us an indication of what this rate might mean? Because we do have, which is right, more houses coming online, which we've had the most housing starts in Hastings Hastings County of anybody this year. And hopefully it's going to do exactly what Councilor Palmetier is saying, helping us share this tax increase among more properties. Could you tell us what we might be looking at?
Yes, so in 2024, the municipal portion only, so excluding the education and county portion they're paying, the average household in the municipality was paying about $1,600. With the current amount now, it would be, as this currently is showing here, would be $1,882, which is an increase of $207 for the year, or $17 per month. So it's a $17 per month for the average household if we proceeded with this increase at 13.21% levy, because you're actually looking at a tax rate change of probably around the 10% range. As there was quite a bit of growth in this last year with some development and everything that was mentioned, which helps spread out this increase over more houses.
Yeah,
Yes, oh, sorry, Council Fair.
Your worship, the inflation rate has gone down. The cost of foodstuffs has gone up. I noticed in a few flyers around bread on sale, 2 loaves for $7, $7.50. I used to sell bread when I was a kid at the IGA store for 19 cents a loaf. That wasn't yesterday.
Yeah, you got to work on a cow or a horse. But that-
So your worship, the fuel costs have gone down. I don't understand why the government hasn't taken advantage of this situation to promote more infrastructure, because fuel costs go down, the cost of asphalt should go down as well. I don't know, there's blinkers on somewhere. We need to remove those blinkers. I don't understand any of this anymore, honest to God. We squirt $4 or $5 billion here just for a dangled carrot. That's our tax dollars. That's the money that we could have used for infrastructure. And we've pointed that out. We've stressed that fact. Everybody at the table has done that.
We always look bad because we're in a position that the only way we can really raise money is through taxation. And little bits amounts through user fees. And we have no choice because we have all of these costs and things keep going up, as we said. But we always look bad because you have the province that says, we're reducing your taxes. Just like Doug Ford said earlier this year, you municipal governments always got your hands in the pockets of your residents. You got to start lowering taxes like we do. Well, when you're going to give everybody $200 to every Ontarian, and it's going to cost $3.2 billion, and you got to borrow that money, and you got to pay interest on that money. But he looks good, we look bad. When you can repatriate and no longer charge the license fee that you had said for the sticker fee, and you can lose $1 billion a year in money that went into infrastructure, you look good because you have saved the taxpayer money. We look bad because we got to find money to pay for that. Justin Trudeau, the federal government, now going to give everybody, was it $250? And then this reduction in the HST, which has been a night for a lot of people, costing $6 billion. Okay, borrowed money again. Okay, they look good, we look bad. Okay, the problem is we have no choice but to deal with our fiscal situation by raising our taxes, because neither government, we've had no assistance from the federal government since we've been on council, and we've had no assistance from the provincial government other than the programs that they have in place to help municipalities, such as the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund and OCIF, the Ontario Critical Infrastructure. So anyway, whatever it was.
Yeah, and the
That-
tornado one.
Uh,
The tornado funding was one that was during this.
Oh, and that would have been, and that was provincial.
Yes.
And that was only because this council fought tooth and nail to get money for our residents. And as a result of it, others, and they will come back to us and tell us if it wasn't for the municipality of Tweed in that fight, nobody would have got a dime. Okay, so we are fighting and we will continue to fight, but we will always look bad because we have no other way to deal with this other than, and that's why we need that development fee, as Councillor Palmetier was saying, to help bring extra revenue so we can try and get these tax increases down. This is not something that we want to do, but this is something we are being forced to do. Anyway, enough for my little spiel again. Okay, yes, Councillor Fleeler.
Okay, one more thing, your worship, and so the Prime Minister has lost his finance minister.
And we're losing ours?
And, well, there's nine gone.
No, obviously we're losing ours.
Well, yeah, I know, but so she identified
Yeah.
that these gimmicks
Yeah.
cost the taxpayers.
Yeah.
It's not in the best interest of the country or the province to provide these gimmicks. And the thing that really burns my Royal Canadian is that we give 91% of our tax money to the
Yep.
feds and to the province.
It's a tough slug. Okay, now, as I want to say, this is not a final budget. This is giving us food for thought. We will probably not be able to get to this till into January or February, but we've come a long way. And as much as I say that this is still an astronomical hike, it's one that we're forced to do, yet it's almost 4% of, 4% lower than what we did last year. And we'll try to continue that trend downwards as much as we possibly can. Any other questions? Is there anything else we have to do here? I'm sorry, I'm going on, this is the end of it.
Yeah, if we're not ready to be final, then yes, the budget reconciliation needs to be deferred. The only other thing I would like to kind of just show the residents is the tax through the years. So in your binders, that would be page 2.5. It's a good reminder.
Me?
2.5.
Oh,
Yeah, so page 2.5, yes.
that was advanced drain.
Yeah, and that 32% in 2006, I believe that was also the first year we started making OPP payments. So it's kind of an unfair comparison to the year before.
Oh, interesting, okay.
But when we look from 2004 at what our operating expenses were at 3.5 million to what they are for 2025, you're looking at a $6.4 million increase. We've only raised the taxes 4.1 million in that same time period. That difference of 2.3 million was pulled from a lot of reserves and investments that we had over the years, and we no longer have those. So this is important for the residents to be aware of, that council can no longer increase that gap. All you can do is maintain it or reduce it, because you have no more savings to be able to rely upon to allow that gap to increase. You're at that critical point now that it cannot get bigger. You will not be able to afford it. And so all you can do as a council, and as you have been doing in the last couple of years, is take control of that and reduce the gap, or at least keep it the same. So it's important for residents to be aware of that as well.
Councillor Valcat, then Deputy Mayor Demarche.
So when I look at those numbers, decisions were made at the time for what were perceived the right reasons. And looking back now with 2020 vision, I don't know if that was right or wrong, so I will be indifferent, but support the fact that those decisions were made. But we're now in a position where we have to look to the future. We have no reserves, very little. We have very little in investments. We can't turn around tomorrow with cash and do something significant if there was an emergency. And that unfortunately has to come from somewhere. And you're absolutely right, Mr. Mayor, that we're always going to be the bad guy, because we're kind of I'm going to say the bank of last resort. Where does that money come from? Well, it has to come from the taxpayer. And 13% does not make me happy. But those numbers don't make me happy either, because decisions were made that are cash strapping us today. So as much as it's going to hurt to decide that it's 13 or 11 or whatever percentage is we land on, those tough decisions need to be made for the future of this municipality. This is not about today. This is about 20 years from now, and trying to reposition ourselves so we're fiscally healthy. And although we're in a less than optimal position, we're not turning off the lights. We're not shuttering things, but we're also not growing the way we should be. These budgets give us an opportunity to look to and to prepare for the future. And as much as it hurts, and I know there's a lot of people who are tapped out and who look at any slight raise, even $17 a month cumulatively over the year, that's impactful for them. I totally understand that. But to do nothing is just putting another nail in the coffin. So when we leave here today, we're going to have to reflect on what or why we're here. And I'm not here for tomorrow. I am. But I'm here more for 10 or 15 years from now. And where do we want to be? Where do we need to be? Tough decisions for everybody.
Well, what often happens with governments is typically governments govern for the next election. So they're always looking at ways to always appease people and not take the tough decisions that need to be made. Like, it's too easy to go through life saying we're going to reduce taxes, reduce taxes, reduce taxes, and then look at our healthcare system and see what tax reduction has done, and see how that tax reduction has been transferred again to county and small municipalities. Like us, for example, forking out $150,000 to draw doctors to our rural communities. Well, that is a healthcare expense to be borne by the province. They're responsible for healthcare, but they don't have to worry about recruiting doctors for small rural communities. When we come up with the money to do it, they divest themselves of their responsibility. That is the same right now, what's going on with the homelessness situation and the group of mayors that are asking Doug Ford to invoke the notwithstanding clause to be able to remove people from these areas, hit them out of the parks, deal with it. Give them the power to do what the province want. Some of these municipalities want the police rights and to be able to go through and remove these camps. Well, the problem is, and the province is saying, yes, we're going to give you the right to do that, but what they should be doing is we should be giving you money to address the situation, not making it your expense now, you incurring your police costs to go out and remove these camps. Again, they divest themselves of responsibility. And the more that municipalities say, okay, we will take it on, speaking to what you said, then the more that we are going to have increased costs, which should have been borne by another level of government. And until levels of government stop worrying about the next election and worrying about how to get votes, okay, and worrying about making hard decisions that are going to get this province, this country on the right track and help us municipalities. Again, go back to our infrastructure. We have to put away almost 13 million a year now to deal with our infrastructure deficit that's coming down. How could we ever do that? We couldn't, and this has been a big push by AMO. And I wrote a letter back to Robin Jones talking about, yes, it's good to put money into new infrastructure to encourage housing development. Yes, this is great. Or, new rec facilities and whatnot to accommodate the growing populations. But everybody's losing sight of the fact that so much of our infrastructure is aging. So you can't put money into new infrastructure until you can fix your old infrastructure. And that's where we're at today. And here we are, we're looking at 13 million, almost 200 and some million over 15 to 20 years that we're supposed to be putting away. We can't do that. And so all of a sudden we have bridges that no longer can accommodate a fire truck, no longer accommodate an ambulance or a school bus or a major piece of farm equipment. So then what happens is, if something catastrophic happens, what happens? Somebody's got to go 45 minutes around to get to somebody's house when it's on fire? Well, that's great. So we've been pushing. We have some real emergency situations in regards to funding that we need, and we're not getting any response. That's why I remain hopeful that the Ford government and Rick Bressie, our MPP, are going to be lobbying strong and hard for us to get the money that we have our applications in for. But it's a tough go. It's a tough go. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Flair.
Your worship, I agree 100% with everything you said, and I also think right now as the interest rates are coming down,
Yes.
and it's gonna be a big boulder to start rolling, but we need somehow to work with our developers to get some of these things addressed. I don't know. And it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. To invest in infrastructure, you put people to work.
Yep.
People are gonna spend money.
Okay, what about our proposal that we put forth to the provincial government? As everybody knows, both the federal and provincial governments have done over $10 billion to the major centers in this province to build new housing, to support new housing. So what we've done is we put a proposal to Minister Surma at our last Roma delegation, and we are going to reiterate it at this Roma delegation, that why won't you work with small rural municipalities and northern municipalities and loan the money to our developers to put in the infrastructure, interest-free. So then, and as they sell a property, they pay you back. Okay, so now you're getting your money back, where when you're giving it to these major centers, you're not getting it back. And it's only costing you, in our case, the interest, where in the other case is you're not getting it back and you're paying the interest as well. So you're really out to lunch on that, getting anything back. Our proposal is very sound. It will help our rural developers put in the infrastructure they need and increase that housing that we so desperately need to flatten out our tax base. But nope, no response, no nothing, but we're not gonna let it go. We don't ever let anything go. We continue our fight. Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Mayor, I just want to expand a little bit on Councillor Valaquette's. Things were, and I think anybody else sitting here before will agree that the pricing, and you referenced the fire truck, for example, things were very different pre-pandemic. And when the pandemic hit, all these companies rode on the back of the pandemic and the shortage of supply and parts to raise the prices through the roof on equipment and trucks and everything. Well, now we're post-pandemic and those prices haven't went back down. So this, I think through the years, we reflected our increase as well with, interest rates and cost of inflation and cost of goods. And this is doing really no differently. We're still holding the same logic, so to speak. Our cost of it went up exponentially. And for not just equipment, but everything we do, like paving and even a new set of tires, if you had put a motor in something. So this is kind of keeping along the lines of doing what we've always done, but the deceptive fact of it is that they start blurting out our rate of inflation is 2%, but that's not reflective of what we're seeing in our true costs. Like our true costs are probably went up 50% in some cases, so it's not reflective of the 2%, and that's the kind of things I have to always explain to people. Like, what a pickup truck used to cost us $35,000. Well, that same truck now is $70,000. So that's not a 2% increase by inflation by any stretch. So I think that if I just think we've kind of maintained the logic we have through the years. It's just along with our costs and our infrastructure struggles that we're doing the same things that we're always successful. And during the pandemic years too, we lost our third funding. So all this plays out. So any money we would have had to do 3 projects now is all being soaked into one. And it really cash strapped us to do it. The only other question I had was, does that number reflect the mayor's proposal?
No.
No, that's not reflective.
So that number does not include the transfer to reserve amounts at all.
Okay,
So if you wanted to get it up to a 15%, that would be a 90, sorry, I wrote it down. 97,500 going into reserves and would bring you to an even 15% tax levy increase. So it's not a lot going into reserves, but it would be something, or you continue with the 13.21%. If your grants are successful, not sick.
Yes,
yeah.
if grants are
Yeah,
successful.
with their
then,
successful, sorry,
Yeah.
mixed up the direct one there.
What are people's thoughts? Because we can basically, if we want, we can reconcile our budget today if we want, or do people want to leave it?
I'd like to chew on it some more, personally.
Chew, okay. So do we want to tentatively put in the 15 then, since it's not, up to 15, since it's not a final budget? Okay, we'll do that. Are we okay?
Mayor, we could leave it and say, this is what we're thinking, if we can't find something somewhere else, we know that's what's on the table.
Well, that's what we're saying. This is a preliminary budget with that on the table, and we haven't finalized anything at this point.
And just one more thing, can we please remove the word propose and put draft on this?
I thought everywhere it should say draft now. But
I think the
I
only
will
time
find
it's
where it says
proposed was
proposed.
the first one when we did it back in October. And it's a draft budget. Yes, you've got it
Yeah.
everywhere. draft.
The only thing I need to know to be able to put in that 97,500 is which reserves would you like it to go to?
I think it should be going into like,
A general reserve?
yeah, can we do it in
So
general?
You can do it into a working capital, which is usually more for operating. I mean, most of your infrastructure needs are in public works. So you could put
I
it in a
would say we
public
put it
works,
into
or
a
we can create just a generic capital needs one. I can create one.
Because it should go to budget, to bridges or to, roads or whatever. So I think that's where our major deficits are right now when we're looking at this. So, okay, create a new one temporarily, as a holding for, general, public works. Construction, like I don't want it to go to wages and stuff like that. It goes to. And then we will sit on this And we will reconvene at some point. We'll leave it, we'll talk about it again at our January meeting, pick a date to when we would like to continue this discussion. Are we okay with that? Or do you want to pick a date now?
No.
Okay. Is that okay? Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Okay, so we have not determined the next meeting yet. We will pick that date at our January, I think 13th, is it, council meeting? 14th?
14th.
14th, okay, thank you.
But I know that day because it's my birthday.
Okay. Be it, can I have a mover to seconder to adjourn today's meeting, please? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Demarche. Thank you, Councillor Palmetier. Be it resolved that council adjourn at 11:29. Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Great discussion.